Welcome to another edition of Retirement Made Simple. My name is Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner based in Los Angeles, and today we're going to talk about 3 reasons investing in a 401k is a bad idea. Now, to be fair, I recommend that most of my clients invest in a 401k, but there are a few pitfalls that I think you need to be aware of. But what I didn't realize is what a controversial topic this was going to be. So for fun, I went to ChatGPT before I developed this outline, and I just asked ChatGPT to help me create an outline for this particular presentation. And ChatGPT refused because they said they felt it was bad financial advice. So I will let you be the judge of whether it's bad financial advice. Now, as a general rule, I think 401ks offer a lot of advantages, but there are also some downsides, and understanding 401k rules could save you a fortune in retirement. So what are the 3 reasons I say that 401ks are a bad investment or a bad idea? So first, a little background on 401ks. So 1978, there was the Revenue Act of 1978. And inside the Revenue Act, there was a provision, Section 401, you guessed it, K. And in Section 401k, it said that employees could set aside an amount of money tax-free as a way to defer compensation from bonuses and stock options. So the 401k Act went into effect in 1980, and a benefits consultant by the name of Ted Benna, he worked for a company called the Johnson Companies, saw the law as an opportunity for employers to create tax advantage savings account for their employers. Up to this point, most companies had a defined benefit plan, meaning that if you were to put X amount of dollars in over the years, when you retired, you would get a pension. But most companies today no longer offer a pension because instead everyone's moved to offering a 401k plan. And a 401k plan essentially works this way. You put an X amount of dollars into the plan, the company might match those dollars, and for every dollar that you put into the plan up to a limit, you get a tax deduction, assuming you do a traditional 401k, not a Roth 401k, but that is another whole video. So let's just stay on kind of the traditional 401k. So if you put $1 into your traditional 401k plan, you get $1 tax deduction. Your company can also put in a certain amount of money, up to 25% of your salary, up to a cap. And you, as an employee, are allowed to put in up to a cap, which as of this recording is $22,500. And you receive a tax deduction for making this contribution. So it is a way to reduce your taxable income. So let's say you make $122,500 and you max your contribution to your 401k plan. You will only pay federal and state income tax on $100,000. Now, you'll still pay Social Security tax on the full amount up to the Social Security tax limit, which of this recording is $160 some odd $1,000. So far, so good. But as we're going to discover in a minute, that tax break that you receive today could end up coming back to bite you later on. But before we talk about that, because that's really one of the big issues I see with the 401k plan, before we talk about that, let's talk about a couple of other issues. Let's talk about a couple of other issues with 401k plans and why they can sometimes be a bad idea. First, fees can be really high. 401k plans come with a variety of fees. There's investment fees, plan administrator fees, and individual service fees. According to one study, the average investment expense of plan assets, now this is all the different fees added together, is 1.6% for plans with 25 participants and under $250,000 in assets. So smaller companies tend to have higher fees. So one of the things you want to look at is what is the all-in expense ratio? Because there is a fee for the investment options in your plan. So if there's a mutual fund in your plan, that mutual fund has an expense ratio. And sometimes there's also a 12B1 fee. And then there's plan administration fees, and there's all these various fees. And so what are all the expenses added together? So one of the things you want to pay attention to is how expensive is your 401k plan. Now, I will say on the plus side, most companies are moving towards lower cost 401k providers, and I am seeing these fees come down. They're offering plans from Vanguard and other lower cost carriers. And so the high fees are less of a concern than they used to be. But that leads us into our second problem. The second challenge with a 401k plan is you just have limited investment options. Your plan administrator limits the number of options that you can invest in for a couple of reasons. One, they're trying to simplify your life. And two, they're also trying to limit the lawsuits because, believe it or not, some people have sued them for offering too many investment options, making the plan options way too complex, or saying, I chose a bad portfolio because I was just overwhelmed, or whatever the case might be, and then they can sue the plan administrator. And so plan administrators have been moving away from offering more investment options. In fact, you can see here over the past 10 years, there's been a significant drop in the number of offerings, fund offerings inside a 401k plan. And that is bad for the end user because it's just much harder for you to create a strategic portfolio which can help maximize your long-term expected return or help you create a higher expected return in your portfolio. And so a lot of portfolios that I now see, or 401k plans that I'm now reviewing for clients, basically are just completely full of target date funds. So if you're going to retire in 2060, you choose the 2060 target date fund from Vanguard. And those funds are fine. They have a low expense ratio. But I think for most people, if they had more options, they could do better and maximize their returns over time. But they really just don't have a lot of options. And so I find myself increasingly telling clients that come to me, actually, yeah, your best option is just using a target date fund. Is that the best way to invest your money? In my opinion, no. But of the options you have, that target date fund is the best option. Okay, so far we've talked about the high fees can be a problem in a 401k plan. The other problem with 401ks plans are limited investment options. But there is one other massive issue with your 401k plan that could cost you a ton of money over your lifetime, and that's the high potential tax burden in retirement. Because remember, when you put your money into your 401k, you receive a tax deduction, and you're really excited because who doesn't love a tax deduction? The problem is that when you take the money out 25, 35, 40 years down the road, you're going to have to pay income tax, not just on the money you put in. So let's say you put in $22,500 into the plan one year, you're going to pay tax on that $22,500, plus you're going to pay tax on any of the earnings. So if your 401k grew in value, that $22,500 has become $100,000, you're now going to pay tax on $100,000 when it comes out. And what I've discovered is improper management of your 401k withdrawals can end up causing your Social Security to be taxed, which you have to be really careful with your income in retirement to avoid that taxation. And you could also end up being charged this really pesky fee called IRMA, which stands for the Income-Related Monthly Adjusted Amount. Say that 4 times quickly. But essentially, the more money you earn in retirement, the higher the chance that you're basically going to be charged a surcharge on Medicare Part B and Medicare Part D. Now, I need to do another entire video where I break down IRMA, what the different breakpoints are, how you can avoid those surcharges. But one of the easiest ways to avoid the surcharge on both IRMA and also having your Social Security taxed is by keeping the amount of money in your 401k plan to a minimum when you go to retire. Here's why this is so important. When you reach a certain age, and that age is shifting, it used to be age 72, it's going to eventually move up to age 75. When you retire at a certain point, you are going to be forced to take money out of that 401k plan, and it can end up creating a massive amount of income in exactly the wrong period of your life. And for many of you, you may not need the money right now. Your pension and your Social Security may be providing more than enough income, and so you just want to let the money in your 401k plan continue to grow, but instead you're going to have to begin taking what's called an RMD, a required minimum distribution. The other challenge with money inside your 401k plan is that it does not pass tax-free to your heirs. Other assets, say something inside a Roth IRA, would pass tax-free, or money inside your taxable account would also pass tax-free because you get a step-up basis. So if you bought a stock for $10, let's say you bought Apple for $10 and it's worth $100 today, when it passes to your heirs, their cost basis is $100. So they get a stepped up basis. You do not get a stepped up basis with money that's in your 401k plan. But I want to dive a little bit deeper into the tax burden and what this could end up looking like for you if you leave your money inside a 401k plan. Now, if you put your money inside a 401k plan for your entire life, that's fine. There are ways that you can begin to convert that money from a 401k to a Roth to begin to mitigate some of these impacts. But I want to just give you kind of an overview so you have the tools to make the decision on your own. So we're going to switch to another screen, and I'm going to pull up a couple of tools that I use when I'm kind of modeling out retirement income growth and also RMDs. So let me switch to the other screen. So now we're on one of my favorite websites. I use this website all the time. It's from investor.gov. You can just Google the compound interest calculator. I'll put the link in my show notes. If you are listening to the podcast, it's going to be a little hard for you to see this, but what I'm doing is I'm modeling out investment growth. So we're going to say you make a monthly contribution in your 401k of $12,000 a year. So you're not even maxing out. You're putting $1,000 a month into the plan, $12,000 a year, length of time, 35 years. So you start doing this at age 30, all the way up to age 65. And your return, your average annualized return is 9%, which is high, but it is in line with what we've seen with the S&P over the past 30 years. And so you putting in $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, 9% return over a 35-year period. That's a bit high of a return to model, but just leave it for now. In 35 years, you will have $2.5 million, almost $2.6 million. And your basis, the amount of money you invested, your total contributions, is going to be $420,000. And the future value is going to be $2.58 million, which means you have had a gain over that period. You only put in $400,000 or $420,000 to earn almost $6 million. The challenge is that you got a tax break on the $420,000, but now you're going to have to pay taxes on $2.5 million. So just put some numbers on this. I pulled up the calculator app that I use all the time. So let's say $420,000, and let's say you're in the 22% tax bracket. You put in $420,000. So over time, you're going to receive, and this is assuming no state income tax, but you're going to receive about $100,000 in tax deductions, $92,000, which is significant. But the problem is that on the $2.5 million, you're going to pay on $2.5 million, you're going to pay, let's say you're also in the 22% tax bracket, you're going to pay $550,000 in taxes. So you saved $92,000 in your earlier years, and now in retirement, you could end up paying $550,000 in taxes, which is a fairly significant tax bill. And this is where we get to the RMDs. So there's actually an RMD calculator on here as well. So we're going to assume, let's see here. We're going to assume that you have $2.5 million the year before you have to start taking RMDs. You're going to start taking RMDs at the end of age, let's say end of age 74. Or at the end here, you're going to be 74, so it's calculating. You're going to have to take out about $100,000 a year in required minimum distributions beginning at age 75. Now, there's a bit of nuance around RMDs in different ages, depending on when you were born, but that's another whole video, so I'm not going to get deeply into that. But if you were born after 1960, your RMDs, it's actually, I think, 1959 or thereabouts, but your RMDs are going to start at age 75. So at age 75, you're going to have to start pulling out, assuming you've allowed this 401k to grow to $2.5 million, and you have to begin taking those RMDs. You're going to have to take out almost $100,000 a year. So instead of having, say, $50,000 in income, now you're going to have $150,000 in income, and that could then begin triggering some of those challenges that I had mentioned before. Right? You could end up having to pay more tax on your Social Security. You could also end up having to pay a surcharge on your Medicare Part B and Medicare Part D. So those are some of the things you want to keep in mind. So here are some general rules of thumb to help you decide where you should put your money and should you max out your 401k. If you are in a high tax bracket, you should most definitely max out your 401k contributions. If you're married, both you and your spouse should. The higher the tax bracket, the more emphatic I am on this, because the question you want to ask yourself is, am I going to be a higher tax bracket today or in the future? And if you're in a low tax bracket, you're just starting your career out, or you're just beginning to invest, or you're mid-career and you're not earning a ton of money, and there's a chance you're going to be in a higher tax bracket in retirement, then you may not want to max out your 401k, or if there's a Roth 401k option, you want to take advantage of that. On the other hand, if you are in the top tax bracket, you're earning, you're in that 37% tax bracket and you live in the state of California or New York, and you are just getting hosed by taxes, it is almost always the best decision to go ahead and maximize the tax deduction through the 401k, because the chances are you're going to be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. Now, if you are in a lower tax bracket, take the match. So if your employer offers a match, let's say it's a 4% match, they'll match up to 4%. Go ahead and put 4% in, take the match, then maximize your Roth contribution. So that would be the next thing I would do. So max out or take the match, maximize your Roth contribution, and then you have a couple of options. You could put money in a taxable brokerage account because it's more liquid. You can take a loan out against it if you're going to buy a house, or you just have more options. And so you have to decide, do I want to put the money in a taxable account where I have more access to it, or do I want to put more money into the employer plan, into a qualified plan? And if you're in a lower tax bracket and you're going to put more money into a qualified plan, the question is, does my employer offer a Roth 401k? Now, I need to do another entire video on Roth 401ks and the difference between a traditional 401k and a Roth 401k, and what's a mega backdoor Roth, and there's all these different things that we could get into. But for now, kind of just a general rule of thumb, as you're considering how much to put into your 401k, ask yourself, am I going to be in a lower tax bracket today, or am I in a lower tax bracket today or when I retire? And if the answer is when you retire, then you may want to put more into your traditional 401k today. If you're saying, I'm going to be in a higher tax bracket when I retire, then you may not want to put as much into a traditional 401k and max out your Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, or put money into your taxable brokerage account. And in fact, there's a really interesting strategy that lets you pull out a ton of money out of a taxable brokerage account completely tax-free if you're really strategic the way you go about doing it. So what some people will do is they'll put some money in a taxable brokerage account and max out the Roth IRA, because they know they can take money out of both those accounts in retirement. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, would you please click the like button, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. Also, leave a comment below. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments, or you can always email me at kevin@foundryfinancial.org. Remember, nothing I say in this video is financial advice. I am a financial advisor, but I am not your financial advisor. Thanks for watching.